Life of Argon, and I think her question,
His
or
question.
his question, yeah, I'm looking, I can't really see that well because my glasses are off. He says, how have your experiences been in the sport, and how does it affect you at the gym being a minority in the sport? Which falls in line with my next question, which was
Hmm.
asking you what your experiences have been as a Muslim woman in sports generally. But I think you can answer his question specifically first.
So how do I navigate being a minority in the sport, and does it affect me at the crag or gym? Um, I it's a tricky one. So in climbing specifically, I feel it sometimes, and it's only at like specific times. It's when there are a lot of new people who don't really climb who come to the gym, and they're like these stereotypical people who enter the gym and they always make these remarks about women or feel the need to show their macho-ness or outdo the girl or make like I've had a few times where guys have made or like white males specifically have made remarks and which made me feel really small or really shit. Um, but it's been few and far between, thankfully. And when it has happened, I've like told management staff about it because I feel like that should be handled appropriately because we tend to dismiss those kind of um,
Mm,
remarks and we can make it out to be as if it's nothing or oh it's something small, it's something I should brush off. But if I've been made to feel uncomfortable in a space where I normally feel safe, um, it's something that should be called out. So I have done that on the occasions that that has happened, but it's thankfully for me personally hasn't really been a huge factor because I'm surrounded by people who are very supportive and who do stand up for me. So if it were to happen around a friend, they would call this out. So I have friends who thankfully hold others accountable, but it's of course not the case for everybody. And I am
mm,
very sure that there are women who feel attacked in the gym space.
mm,
Definitely. I mean, you don't even have to go
mm.
as far as like a climbing gym, but if I think about like a regular gym or any
Yeah.
sport, there's always that feeling of, oh, I'm being I'm being attacked or someone is saying something negative or I'm being made to feel insecure because I'm a woman or because I'm a woman of color.
From your community, have you felt any, I can't say discrimination, but comments or feelings towards the sports that you do because maybe you don't cover up your hair while you're doing those sports,
Mm.
or the clothes you wear, because right, you have to climb with tight clothes.
Well, not necessarily tight clothes. So you could wear, there are climbing pants, but unfortunately, climbing pants cost an arm and a leg. Like
I can imagine.
the cheapest climbing pants is like 1.3, 1.5. It's
Wow.
really steep to invest in climbing pants. And generally, people would just wear, running tights or gym tights,
Mm,
yogurt pants, whatever, to climbing, which is of course fitting. You don't have to. So, like I said, you don't have to wear fitted clothing, but wearing jeans is or like baggy pants is generally not. For me personally, I don't like wearing super super loose pants, just because I find it always hooks in the on the wall. But
mm,
whether I have received comments, should I say, about dress style, which of course um, would affect me. But my parents are, as for me, are the comments from my parents matter most, should I say. So
yeah.
if my parents would say like, "Hey, we found that we don't like the how revealing this was or how revealing that was," out of respect, I would not post that or I would not climb in that. But generally, I like to think I'm like some sort of in a some sort of middle ground where I'm not wearing like shorts, but I am wearing tights or I'm wearing a t-shirt and I'm not covering my hair. But that's not to say that you can't climb fully covered, because in the International Federation of the International Climbing World Cups, so of course there's an international federation for climbing, and when they host their World Cups for speed climbing, there is a Malaysian woman. She actually won the speed climbing last year. She climbs with full hijab, and she wears a long sleeve top, which I climb in long sleeve top, so as well. But she does wear tights, but she just wears a long t-shirt. So it's not to say like you can't climb in a hijab. It's definitely possible. And like Nike has come out with their, I'm sure you know, Nike has come out with their, I think it's Nike or Adidas, one of the two have come out with their running hijab, which is like you can slip it over your head. It's kind of like a
I've
buff
seen it.
almost. Yeah. So they have come out with that, but again, that's like really expensive. But you can climb with that if you want it, because then it, of course, it's conducive for sports.
I've also
So
seen
I
that.
would say very much say it's very much a personal preference more so than other people are telling me I can't or I should not or I should wear this.
I've seen that the Nike hijab. There's also the swimming range. They said they call it the modesty swimming range. But I don't think
Mm,
I've seen that one in South Africa. I've seen the hijab in South Africa though. So I wanted to ask you about issues that affect women that are very dear to your heart. At the beginning of the conversation, there are quite a number of things
mm,
that we spoke about, and we could continue probably until tomorrow. But
yes.
what I don't want us to touch on all of them due to time constraint, but I just wanted to ask, what
Mm.
are your biggest ones, like your biggest issues that are affecting women that really annoy you?
So of course GBV is has to be number
Yeah.
one, because if it's not number one on your irritations, then that says more. But gender-based violence is definitely something I feel very passionate about, and like it makes me emotional when I think about just how normal it is. And that actually became more apparent to me after spending last year in Europe, which is like such a stark contrast. Honestly, it is such a stark contrast, like living for a year and not having to worry about my safety, or not having like going out and not having people text you and be like, hey, are you home? Text me when you're home. And have that become my norm. I felt almost guilty at the same time as shocked and horrified. And when you put things into perspective and you have that kind of comparison, it brings home the message even more that our normal is disturbing and
Yeah.
should not be a normal. So definitely GBV. And then I meant another thing that I mentioned in the beginning was women being told that they're too much. Like, it's happened to so many women um, who I find inspirational and who do so much in society, or who are just phenomenal women. They're often told that they're too much. And that concept really disturbs me, because why can't I be an extrovert? Why can't I be successful in my career? Why can't I be a sportswoman? Why are we imposing these limitations on women, and why are we saying that they have to fit into these defined boxes? And why can't she excel at a lot, why can't she be loud and confident and at the same time be a professional? So that's something that I also be it's like that's a very different to GBV. Like those are opposite on the spectrum, but I think also it's also important. Yeah.
What you said right now resonates with. So I was speaking with Rose from Nigeria, and she
Hmm.
also shared the same sentiments that in the society that she's living in, if she's in public transport, for example, she can't sit in the front seat because women generally can't sit in the front seat, and she doesn't understand why, because she's also paying the same amount of money. Why does she have
Wow.
to sit at the back? Just
Hmm.
because she's a woman. And I guess that's a society that we've been growing up in, that you do something because you're a man, or you do something because you're a woman, and it's expected of you. It's expected of you to get married. It's expected of you to have kids.
Hmm.
You might be the CEO of the largest, I don't know, insurance company, but if you don't have kids, then you're regarded as I don't want to say less of a woman, but it's like
Mm.
you haven't fulfilled your
Almost
duty
effective. Yeah.
on, yes, you haven't fulfilled your duty on this earth. And for some people, it really affects them to the point where they don't feel validated unless they're with someone or they're married or
Mm.
they have kids, and they disregard all the achievements that they've gotten so far and look on that one thing that they don't have, you know? And
Mm.
for me, even as a man, it's very bothering to me that, all of your life's achievements are graded against this one thing. And maybe it's not even for you. Maybe that's not
Mm.
what you want in your life. And I feel that we need to have more conversations around this.
Yeah,
These definitely
I
need
could
to be
not agree more with you. It's
done.
luckily I have parents who are very supportive of me. Like it's not they've always been supportive, but of course they've also evolved with my evolution, and they've continued to be supportive. And of course it's been an uphill battle for certain topics or like certain things that I've wanted to do. For example, like being in science, I'm not going to earn a lot of money, and that was something that I had to fight with my parents about. Like, I'm doing it because I want to help people. And the same with like the sports that I choose. They're very extreme, they're very out there, they're like loud sports, if you would have it put it that way. And but luckily they've been very supportive, and that makes a huge difference. Is when you have people supporting you and standing by you, it definitely makes everything possible. So I always try and support every woman, like in any, even if I don't know you, I could strike up a conversation with you in the line Pick and Pay, and if you tell me you're struggling with something, I'll still try and help you. So I always believe like we should try and support, we should try and help, and it's why I think charity, well, charity in general is always great, but charity towards like women empowerment is even better.
I'm liking the trend I'm seeing on Instagram right now where women are pasting pictures of themselves. It's kind of a women supporting women effort.
Oh, it's the gray square, the gray black and white square. Is that
Yes,
the one you're talking about? Yep. So that
yes.
one actually is got to do with Turkish women, and it's actually GBV related. And
Okay.
that's yeah. I will send you a post on it just now after this, but it's got to do with GBV in Turkey specifically. I don't know if a lot of people know about that. So it's also about like, yeah, women supporting women, but
Mm,
there's always a kind of split in how people view things, of course. And so
yeah.
there's one side that says like, this is a patriarchal statement that women always tear women down, or that concept. It's an idea put forth by patriarchy to try and separate us, to make us post these things about ourselves, further, what did they say? Further, like sexualizing ourselves in a way, or using it as a social, performative reason. That's like one view on this whole black and white square. And then the other view is also just standing up for GBV in Turkey at the moment. And I think that's kind of the post I've been seeing about it as well. But I think it just started today. Well, for me, it just started today. I just noticed it today.
Mm,
But in general, I really love, sorry, I really love these kind of movements.
I think they're so beneficial to society, and how we raise our children has to be different to how our parents raised us. When we grew up, we didn't have
Sorry.
social media,
Hmm.
and the kids growing up today, they have access to all of the resources. And I think it's up to us to really change perspective. I'm all about breaking stereotypes. And I think I
Hmm.
try to strive for this every day in life, to break
Hmm.
stereotypes. But yeah, these are efforts that will, the fruits of these efforts we'll see as time goes by. Oh, yeah. So before the video cut, I was asking you about, your burning issues with regards to women
Hmm.
in sports, and you had mentioned that representation is very important to you, and that's what you've
Yeah.
noticed.
So representation, definitely. Like culturally, religiously, women of color, minority, like all the minorities, like LGBTQIA across the board, like representation, definitely. And I think over the last 2 years, that has definitely improved. But representation is still something that needs to be worked on. And then another thing is just accessibility. So accessibility to um, disadvantaged communities, specifically for me. That is something like if I wish it was there were programs. Well, they probably, I mean, there are definitely programs running across different sports which allow people or kids from disadvantaged or just even adults from disadvantaged communities to access these sports. But I wish it was ramped up and it was on a larger scale at least, because sport has such a rehabilitative effect, and it's a
Mm.
knock-on effect, and it helps you mentally and physically and emotionally. It helps you cope. So I definitely, I definitely like would advocate for sports and on the whole. But yeah, so the two would be representation and access to in disadvantaged communities.
Somebody sent me message on my DMs actually today.
Hmm.
And in the post there was, so the one square had the cost of a male basketball player's house, which was over
Hmm.
$50 million. That's one basketball
Hmm.
player's house. And underneath it was the women's, it showed the cost of the women's WNBA, which was
Hmm.
$45 million. So the
Hmm.
entire league is worth less than one man's house. And that just showed me, and we spoke about this, the
Yeah.
gender pay parity between
Oh,
men
yeah,
and
that's another
women in
thing.
basketball, but it transcends throughout
Across
all
the
of the sports
sport.
we follow.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, it's not something I think about regularly because, of course, I'm not doing climbing or any of my sports professionally where I'm being paid to do it. But of course, like the gender pay difference is insane, insane. And the
Mm.
fact that we still have to fight for that kind of equality and equity is astounding. It's truly astounding. And the fact that it just continues to be a norm is more disturbing for me. And it almost feels like there's nothing we can do to change that because it just, it's just the way the world runs, if you want to be super pessimistic about that. But I do think there are advances happening. Like I have heard of scenarios or cases where the women have petitioned and they are being paid equal, but that's
Mm.
like so few and far in between. It needs to be a norm
Mm.
rather than an
Mm.
outlier.
The
Yeah.
general sen- so the general sentiment, so also what I've read and what I've heard is that women's sports doesn't attract viewers. People are not
Mm.
interested in watching women play, but the women's team sometimes perform better than the men's team. You know, you look at Bafana
Yep.
Bafana versus Banyana Banyana. You know,
Yes.
Banyana
I was
Banyana
about to say that now. It's
performs so
insane.
much better than the males team, but it's not even, if we're moving away from the pay, even seeing the
Mm.
games that we play, it's very hard to see a women's game on TV.
Yeah,
You generally,
there's just no footage or like coverage rather. Well, not that there's no coverage, but if there is coverage, firstly, it's not promoted in the same light. Like the advertisement for
mm,
a women's all match is not the same. And that begs the question of why do we place less emphasis on women um competitive big sports for women. So
mm,
soccer, like soccer, rugby, or even the smaller sports. Like why isn't there a great emphasis on it? And what is it about how we view women that we find it boring or not as entertaining to watch? Because I'm pretty sure if you watch a women's rugby match, there's going to be as much physical abuse
mm.
to the body as there would be for a male rugby match. Like, why do we see it as less as than a male, well, male match. And that's something that we need to address. Like a conversation definitely needs to be had about that. Like what's the driving forces there? Is it still because like society places women lower on the scale beneath man, or as less as a man, or that we're not
Mm,
as capable as men, or that we don't perform as well as men, or that we can't perform as well as they do, that we don't have the same capacity for muscle building or tenacity in a sport, or that we just biologically going to be weaker than they are. So
mm,
there's probably a lot of factors as to why that is. And also potentially just because the management is run by men. We never
yeah.
know. Like it could be a lot of things, but it's definitely something I would be interested to do research on, to be honest. And if or like I would be keen to see posts about that. So if you come across any sort of any person who's doing like a study on it, or just analyzing like trends, or has done some sort of questionnaire, I would love to see that.
And you'll
Even
actually
with
find
like the
that
gender pay.
and you'll find that there's been research done on it, and it's just been
Hmm.
published, and it's not being, publicized or distributed towards other
Mm.
channels. It's probably just being published in a journal, and it's just sitting there. It's
Sitting
kind of
there.
like how certain like brands, for example, like Victoria's Secret, they had a certain type of woman which they used as
Mm.
models, but
Mm.
they wanted a plethora of women to buy their products, but they're marketing using the skinny blonde girl, And then you had the disruptor, which is like Rihanna's underwear
Yes.
line, which catered to everybody.
Mm.
And now because it's that thing of I see you in it, you look like me,
Disruption.
I
Yeah.
am going to buy it. It's disruption. So I guess in this case, a disruption would need to happen, but also how do you go about, disrupting the
But
space?
also, but also like large brands like Nike, Adidas, but like even the smaller brands, what always used to annoy me was the fact that they chose models for their sports brands. Like that still today will blow my mind that they will choose a model to represent them as a sports brand. Why not just take someone who is top in the sport, or if that and that's what I like about the current disruption in the big brands, is that they're using, like, for example, I don't know if you've been on the Nike website recently, but they use women. It's very representative now. They use women of all sizes, shapes, colors, everything. It is fantastic to see that they've changed that. And same with their marketing. I think it's Calvin Klein as well. Yeah, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Klein. They've also completely changed their advertising with regards to representation, and it's fantastic. Like that's the kind of change I'd like to see. And I've had this debate with a friend of mine. He always gets quite, he has like different opinions on whether brands should be getting involved in these kind of societal and political topics. But I'm very, like as I said at the beginning of the topic, the conversation, I'm very much for that kind of disruption.
A few weeks ago, I actually shared on my story. So the
Hmm.
magazine Runner's World in America,
Hmm.
um, Runner's World. So this agency or rather company did a study on the three top running magazines in America, and they found that less than 15% of their covers for the past 10 years have featured people of color.
Hmm.
So it was very interesting to see this contrast because running is a very diverse sport, and every time you go buy this
Mm.
magazine, you see the same type of model figure, because they
Hmm.
use them every month. So this one creative created different Runners World covers
Covers,
featuring
yeah.
real, yeah, featuring like I could say real runners, but it was runners from across
Hmm.
the world, different shapes, different skin tones, different sizes. I'll actually share that
Hmm.
with you. I found that to be a very, very, very interesting.
I love these kind of disruptions taken in the hands by like
Mm,
regular creatives. It's the same with the Vogue challenge. So the Vogue challenge,
yeah,
I'm sure you know about it, that went crazy on TikTok,
mm,
and that was actually to represent Black lives and Black creatives in a in like a positive space. And I thought that was fantastic. Like the output from that was amazing. But what I also wanted to touch on quickly was para sports. Para sports, I think, is also something that needs more representation.
Mhm.
And climbing is great because it also has para climbing, so you can have different kind of disabilities, whether it's like an arm disability, sight disability, limb or like lower limb disability.
Mhm.
You're still capable of competing, and I think that's great. Like there's no limitation in climbing. And technically, I have a disability because of my arm now, because I can't straighten it. So one is like bent, can you see? And the other one is straight. But it's not I'm not born with a disability. That's just because I have stiffness and I can't straighten my arm anymore. But like climbing has been great for it, and that's why I started it. And I think, yeah, so that's what I forgot to mention that earlier, that even if you have a disability, you can still climb. You shouldn't feel held back by it. And that's also what I think needs to be represented in sports. Is just, I mean, Paralympics is a big thing, but
Mm.
we need to see like representation on a local level as well.
See, the thing is, we don't even get to know our athletes from the Paralympics until we see them at the Paralympics. I think the
Yeah,
last
it's
biggest
like they pitch
name
up and
from
you're
the
like, what?
Paralympics, yeah, you know, I think the last big personality from the Paralympics was
Miss
Natalie
Oscar
Dupont.
and
Oh
Natalie,
yes,
yeah.
and Oscar. Yes,
But
and I
Oscar's a
remember
different case
Natalie.
altogether. Yeah.
And I remember Natalie actually participated. I can't remember if it was the Olympic Games or the Commonwealth Games. She
Mm,
participated with able-bodied swimmers. And I think
yes,
she's one of the few Paralympics who have ever
was allowed.
done that. But
Yeah.
she has done amazing things for this
Mm,
country and for swimming in general. And for somebody who doesn't watch the Olympics, they wouldn't know who she is because such stories are not they're not marketed, they're not told, they're not
mm.
advertised. So I think with the advent of social media, such efforts and such stories we can easily distribute and share to everybody.
Yeah, I
And that is
agree.
going to go through
Totally
social
agree.
media.
And I thought about that just when you were talking about the magazine covers. Like, I think para sports people, inspire sports women, should
Mm,
definitely be highlighted. Like, there's probably a specific day towards para sports people that I just don't know about. Like, you know how we have days celebrating people, or like a month celebrating them, and I should do more research into that.
mm, actually, a good idea. I should also look into that. I wanted to ask you about Corona, COVID-19, our current
Can't
reality.
escape it.
Cannot escape it. I mean, a lot of bad has happened
Mm,
because of Corona, but a lot of good things have come out of it. Because now I'm having these sessions, and I can only do these sessions because we're on lockdown, and this is where the idea started.
mm-hmm,
Um, I think some good has come out of it. We now realize that we don't have to spend 2 hours to drive to work to sit in front of a laptop because we have to be there. Now we're
mm.
working from home and we're still being productive from home. That's how it's affected me. I'm working from home at the moment. But how has it affected you?
So I, well, as I mentioned, because I'm still a PhD student, I have to do, and my project is very much hands-on. So I have to go to the lab and I do experiments, and that's how I generate data so that I can write up a paper or two papers on my thesis. I actually have to be in the lab, and I haven't been able to be in the lab since March. Today was actually my first day back. Um, and I have lost a lot of time. And the
Yeah.
reality for me is that my PhD is being funded by scholarships. And if this is my last year of my scholarship, and I was meant to finish my PhD this year, and I won't finish my PhD this year because of the loss of time, and I now have to extend till next year, and I might not get my scholarships next year, which is very scary for me because how do I
Mhm.
fund my studies? How do I finish my studies? How do I pay for this and for that and for like like how do you live? And so that for me
Mm.
is scary. So it my like the effects on my life are more long term for the like long term in the
Mm.
sense of like my next 2 to 3 years at least, and that was very scary. And it of course affected me mentally as well and emotionally, as it has affected everybody. And I've actually managed to cope via my climbing group. We created this WhatsApp group to keep everyone motivated and to keep training, actually. And they truly got me through hard times. Seriously, like we'd have midday at 12 o'clock, we had abs. We do abs for 15 minutes every single day. And I kid you not, we did abs every single day for like 3 months for 15 minutes at 12 o'clock. And I would like look forward to those 15 minutes just to have that social interaction, have that endorphin rush. And,
Mm.
you know, that really got me through.
And to keep your fitness up because, when you go back to climbing and you haven't been exercising, it's going to
Oh
be hard.
man.
It's going
Oh
to be hard.
man, trust me, like even just dabbling around outside, I can feel the difference. I'm like, where's my finger strength gone to? But it's okay, everything, a lot of positivity is born out of struggle,
Yeah.
definitely. And we always come back stronger, and as much as it sucks in the moment, a lot of positivity is born out of struggle. I strongly believe in that. And I know that everything that I find challenging, or to me, whatever I perceive, because I am Muslim and I am religious, everything that I perceive as a challenge, or everything that my brain tells me is negative, is actually not negative, and it's actually not a challenge, because everything from my creator is a blessing. And it's really taking me on the path that I've asked to be guided on, and the path that I'm meant to be on, and it's making me to be a better person. Like every single struggle I've been through has made me better. And I would hope the same for a lot of people. And it's just very much a mindset at the same time, how
Mm.
you choose to see your struggles. Or, I mean, okay, objectively, your struggles are what they are, but you can also help yourself along. Like I said, like the very first thing I said in the conversation was gratitude. And that's still
That's
something
true.
I would advocate for. Like
I,
just being aware.
I think that's one thing I take from this conversation because it's something that I struggle with. So I really need to work on that gratitude
Hmm.
point. You just mentioned, well, you did actually mention at the start of the interview and now that you're Muslim.
Hmm.
I'm curious, have you been to Mecca?
I have not been to Makkah. I would love to go on Umrah. I really would love to go. And my parents actually, for my 21st birthday, gave me some money to invest.
Mm.
And because it's quite an expensive trip, or it
Yeah,
can
I
be
know.
quite expensive
Mm.
rather. And people save up for like a very long time. And it's like a whole process to applying. And because there are quotas, there's a quota system on how many
Mm.
people can go from each country. So I would
Mm.
love, love, love to go. And it's definitely something I'd love to do in the next 5 years.
But you see, now Corona has affected even stuff like that because
Hmm.
pre-Corona, there was a
Pilgrimage.
quota on how
Yeah.
many people can undertake. It's called the Hajj, right?
Hajj. Yeah, you can have a major Hajj or minor Hajj. So minor Hajj would be a Umrah. Yeah. But
And
you're very much correct.
and moving on now, I asked this because when I was working in Cape Town, I'd come down to Cape Town weekly, and there's a
Hmm.
book that I bought by Rada Jacobs. It was about
Hmm.
her pilgrimage journey, and I was
Hmm.
so enthralled in this book. I don't think I put it down. I finished it in a day, and she was basically detailing her process from before, during, and after the pilgrimage.
Hmm.
And the one thing I picked up from the book was that there are a lot of people that go, because she was mentioning that even at the place that they were in, you couldn't move. And also, she mentioned that I can't remember what it's called, but at a specific time of the day, you all go down to this place and then you walk around 7 times.
The Kaaba. Yeah, the Kaaba. I'm
Yes,
pretty sure you've seen it before. It looks like a
I
black.
have.
Yes, yes.
She had a picture in a book. I have, and I've also seen it on TV when the procession goes around it 7 times.
Hmm.
But I think her main point was that it's so packed and there's so many people that come from all over the world. But
Hmm.
now Corona has affected events like that. You've got marathons that were cancelled, major events that were cancelled.
Hmm.
So My next question is, what do you think our new normal is going to be?
Whew. So I can be a very, I like to call myself an optimistic realist because I hope for the best, but like being a scientist, I'm also very logical and rational and take into account what is actually probably going to happen. So of course I hope that, okay, so which I should have mentioned is I also strive for sustainability and environment, like I'm very much an environmentalist. And what Corona has brought to light is just how we actually don't have a need for so many like so much building space like offices, and like you mentioned,
Yes,
the
yes.
lack or of need to travel, which means cutting down a lot of fumes or fuels generated
Mm,
from or emissions from cars or trains or planes. And like of course at the start of lockdown everyone was posting like, did you see the difference in the air quality, did you see like all of these things, like the animals coming out, that kind of thing I thought was very positive. And so one of the things I wish to come from this is just learning to live in a more sustainable way, just in general,
mm,
just from these small examples. Um, what do I think the new normal is going to be like? I think we might revert back to a semi-normal semblance of what we had before. Like I've already seen it from international, like at least Europe anyway, because I have a lot of European friends just from having been there last year. And like some people are out partying, some people are out at restaurants again, and unfortunately it's just how we are as humans. When
yeah,
it's not directly affecting us anymore, you kind of forget that times were hard and you kind of go back to
yes.
normal. But I do hope that globally there are big changes,
Mm.
to kind of, I don't know. I don't know. It also depends on what people want. Like what would you like? Let me ask you that. What do you think would suit you
So right
best?
now, so I've always, since I started working a few years ago, I've always questioned what you mentioned. Why do we need so much building space? Or rather, why
Mm.
do we need to come into the office at a certain time and leave at a certain time? Because I work in the hub of traffic in Gauteng.
Oh,
And
housing traffic is something else though.
but I must say, as bad as Sandton traffic is, when I was in Cape Town, I lived in the CBD and I drive out to my client who was out of the CBD. So it was a 15-minute drive for me. And I would see all of these cars coming into CBD. And I think, you know what? Sandton traffic is bad, but Cape Town traffic is worse because there's one entrance into the city.
Yes,
So
yes.
you are stuck. So
Mm.
for me, going forward, I'd really like to see more remote working. I think I work
Mm-hmm.
for a company that's always emphasized the remote working, facilities. So we always had that in place, but I'd like for more companies to enable that to when we go back to normal,
Mm-hmm.
that being in the office is not such a requirement, and we can work remotely. And also think we're going to have situations where you're working for a company in Europe and you're based in South Africa, or you're
Mm-hmm.
studying in another university in another country and you're based
Mm.
here. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that. Corona has shown us that, technology is here. We need to use technology.
Yeah,
And if you cannot
I
use
completely
technology,
agree.
then you're not going
I
to be able
completely
to keep
agree.
up with the world. Mm,
Two things I quickly want to say. So, the virtual world is something that everyone's going to have to learn to use. For example, I did a virtual conference that I was meant to go to, not a conference, a virtual course. I was meant to go to Italy for this 1 week course, and it happened online. I did a week's worth of courses that I was meant to be in Italy for online, and it was like 200 participants, and they managed to make it work over Zoom. That was fantastic. And I also did this
mm,
other thing called the Virtual Kilimanjaro Challenge with the SPCA. They hosted a challenge where they would normally go to climb Kilimanjaro to raise funds for the SPCA in Santon,
mm.
actually. And this year they did a virtual challenge where, of course, you couldn't go, but you just had to do 50,000 uphill steps and you could still donate money. Like all of these things are still possible. And it's like this is evident by me just saying those two things, like virtual conferences. Um, and it of course is going to challenge people because we love to move, we love to travel, we love to
Mm,
be global, we love to intersect with cultures, and that is obviously going to challenge us.
mm,
Because I already know so many people are dying to go on their next travel, like to go out
yeah.
and to go and explore, and I want to travel. Of course, we can't curb that completely, um, but we'll see. We will see.
I also think like Corona's forcing us to be more flexible. When lockdown started, I read about a brand in Cape Town. I think it's Grenadilla Swim. So they went from selling swimwear in 1 week, and then
Mm.
the next week they were selling bread and milk because it was
Hmm.
lockdown and nobody was going swimming anymore. So you see, I think as individuals, we're gonna need to be flexible to a point where we do things that we normally wouldn't do, and also we don't rely on one income stream, which is something
Which
that
is
a lot
also
of
very difficult for like
people.
it's difficult for different generations. Like for my parents' generation, it's so hard to grasp this virtual transition or the remote transition, you know? And I think it's a
Mm,
lot easier for our generation to transition into
mm,
this, and it kind of is really, I wouldn't say expected or normal, but can become the new normal because we've grown up around it, we've grown up in it, or we've transitioned with it. You know, if you're a 90s kid, you transitioned with the advent of like
yeah.
the phone and the computer. So it's kind of normal. And I was discussing with a friend of mine, I was telling her how, you know, we need to be taught in school now how to live in this virtual 3D world. Like, we need to learn about
Mm.
cryptocurrencies. We need to learn how to do coding languages. We need to learn how to be adept in like this new normal. And it's going to be a huge paradigm shift, as I keep saying. And it's scary, but I'm excited at the same time.
My mother has always echoed this because we've discussed the fourth industrial revolution before,
Mm.
and I was telling her about AI and the robots that are coming, and
Mm.
all of these technological advances.
The
And she was
robots that
like,
are coming. That statement can be
we
so
already have
scary. The
robots,
robots are coming. I
and
know.
they're here. And she is always asking me, what about people's jobs? If a robot is
Mm.
coming in, for example, into a bank, and you're doing all of these things at the ATM, what about the cashier inside? And those are hard-hitting questions because right now, so many people have lost their
Mm.
jobs. And moving forward, if you cannot
Mm.
adapt, like you said, the older generation finds it difficult, then it's sort of like you won't be able to survive in the new economy because you cannot use the technology. It comes across with something as banking. The older
Mm.
generation prefers actually going into the branch, whereas
You always
I
really do
haven't been in the
online
branch.
banking, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
haven't
you
been
know,
into a branch
it's
in years.
as sucky, like this is such a terrible thing to say, but it's a reality. Like adaptation is kind of a privilege because if you don't have the mental space or in your life you don't have the capacity for this, like if you're living in a township and if you're living by day-to-day salary, you don't have the capacity to, it's a privilege for you to be able to, you know, worry about or think about the virtual world or transitioning into it. And that's something that
Mm,
really is sits heavy on me, is just that
mm,
disproportionate um or just like the disparity rather between privileged and the disadvantaged. And it's like it can put it into context for every societal struggle,
yep.
you know.
And it has a ripple effect that's exponential because look at now the schools, public
Mm.
schools are closed,
Oh,
but
yeah.
some private schools are still open.
Mm.
Let's take it with the context of the matric year. If you're in
Mm.
matric right now in a public school, you have lost so much of your work that even if
Mm.
when matric exams come and let's say the matric exam is easier, but when you get to university next year, you're going to struggle more because you didn't grasp the concepts from this year that you need to transfer into next year. And
Mm.
again, that social disparity is exponential. Is how can I say this? It has a ripple effect, right? Because now
Mm.
you cannot you
It's like the
cannot
butterfly
study
effect.
properly. Yeah, basically. So,
But
yeah.
to end up on a lighter note, let's pull back up. Like to end on a lighter note, you know, whenever you're in a struggle, when you're ever in the deep and the dark, it always seems like it's never going to end, or that the outcome is always going to be for the worse. But like I said earlier, again, matter of like perspective. Um, find you can always find some positive in a situation. As much as you think there is always there's only negative, or there has to be a negative, there is really always a positive if you just focus on gratitude.
That's true. And to end off on a
Like,
lighter note
yeah, yeah,
and
lighter
an
notes. Like,
inspirational note,
hmm,
um, I would like you to like send out a message to the women of South Africa for Women's Month.
for Women's Month, keep pushing boundaries. And what wait, I have some. Uh, there's two things. Like, one is I am enough, because women constantly feel like they're not enough. So you are enough. Like, I am enough is definitely something that we need to say more to ourselves. So if you're a woman out there, woman of color, it doesn't matter anything. Like, keep saying I am enough and know that you are enough. And seriously, break the break boundaries, break expectations, and just be too much. Take up space. Like, that's definitely my saying. Yeah,
Cement
that would be.
yourself.
Oh, one more thing. Like, I on a whim this year. Well, I won't say no. Let's not say a whim. But I entered Miss South Africa this year. Like, I submitted an entry, should I say? And in my entry, I said, my thoughts are loud and end with exclamations. That is something I think I would say. Like, your thoughts are loud and they end with exclamations, and don't be afraid to have them known.
Thank you so much for your beautiful
Thank you
message,
so much.
Naadirah.
No, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been wonderful. I feel like I
I
learned a
really
lot.
enjoyed it. I really
Same.
enjoyed that you were free and you could express your views. And you were free to express whatever was on your chest, and you were not scared to let it all out. Yeah, this was such a valuable conversation. Your
Thank you so
insights.
much for allowing me to be here on your platform, and even like an even bigger thank you to you for like taking up this endeavor of just showcasing women, and celebrating women. So thank you again for,
My
especially
pleasure.
in this rough time, for bringing some positivity out.
Yeah, these are hard times.
And I wish
So
you all the best, hey? I wished
thank
you
you
all the
so much.
best too.
Thank you so much.